All right, so as mentioned, I'm going to be talking about the future of e-commerce and retail. And this is a really huge topic. There is a lot going on. It is enormous. However, it is still the case that the way that we shop today is very antiquated. Things are moving, and I'm going to talk about that. So before we dive in, here's a little bit about myself. So I'm Natalia. I'm working on a startup right now. I also work with 500 startups. I'm a mentor there. So I advise companies on user experience, on data, analytics, customer acquisition, all kinds of stuff. I invested in a couple of companies with them. Prior to that, to what I'm doing now, I worked at eBay. I worked at Microsoft on web search. I'm very data-driven, very analytical. And the key thing to mention is I am based in Silicon Valley. So that has probably a lot of impact on my thinking. So I'm going to start off with this. How many people here are doing startups? Raise your hand, or if you want to do startups. Or anything creative. How about that? All right, a lot of people. So before I go into e-commerce, I wanted to put a little joke in. So let's say you're doing something creative. This is how it all starts. You know, you're very excited. You're like, okay, I've got coffee. My favorite song is playing. I've got 6 hours of free time. Let the inspiration rain down. And then this is what ends up happening very quickly. So point is, startups are really hard. Before I go into a lot of this stuff, I want to talk about there's the innovation, but all innovation is built on something that was done previously. Where observation is concerned, chance favors the prepared mind, says Pasteur. So I'm going to talk a little bit about why I'm excited about e-commerce and why I'm standing here talking about it now. I worked at eBay 2010. So here's some crazy statistics about eBay. eBay does around 68.6 billion in merchandise per year. Like, that's astounding. That's how much stuff goes through eBay. And they sell everything that's possible. You can probably find it there. They sell cars. People buy cars on eBay. This is pretty crazy. When I was there, people started buying cars on phones. That's even crazier to me. It's insane. People buy a lot of phones. They buy a lot of shoes. Does anybody want to guess how often somebody buys a car on eBay? Any guesses? Come on, somebody. 5 minutes. Good guess. It turns out it's actually 49 minutes. Somebody buys a Ford Mustang. Okay, how about this one? This one, phone. How often does somebody buy a phone on eBay?
10 minutes here. Come on.
5 seconds somebody buys a phone on eBay. And then they sell a lot of shoes. So shoes, come on guys.
A millisecond. Or something.
A millisecond. Actually 6 seconds. Every 6 seconds somebody buys a pair of shoes on eBay. So it's kind of a crazy, crazy website, and I feel like I had a great opportunity to work on something that has such impact and scale on people all over the world. So let's see, 108 million active buyers and sellers, over 250 million queries every day to the eBay search engine, and over 350 million live global listings. So let me be a little more specific. When I was at eBay, I worked on search. Search is something that I feel very close to. I also worked on search at Microsoft. I saw tons of data. I could see what people are doing every day. To me, this is really exciting. I love looking at it. It also really gives you insight on the crazy things that people do, whether it's on a web search engine or on eBay. And so on eBay, search accounts for over 70% of all traffic. When you have a site like eBay, right, you have so much traffic. Well, turns out it's all going through search. So what are people searching for? This was also really fun for me because I get to sit around all day and look at, what are people doing? What are they searching for? So one really funny query, Northlight, right? You would think it's about light. It's not about light. Anyone want to guess what it could have been? It's pretty ambiguous. I was really puzzled. I was like, why would anyone want to search for North Light? What does this mean? It turns out it's a cat figurine. North Light is a type of a decorative cat figurine that people are crazy about. eBay started out with these very passionate users who they're crazy about comics, they're crazy about figurines, they collect stuff, and they are, they really care about this stuff. So like, here's verbatim feedback. This guy cares so much about these cats. It's like, the category resets to all. Instead of a single cat I chose, not really very helpful in a refined search. So I'd get a lot of these crazy kind of comments about people who are really passionate about eBay, have been on it for 8 years. The average eBay user is 50, and they've been on eBay for 8 years, and they feel really connected to the community. So anyway, that's kind of what got me here, why I'm talking about it. I was just so amazed by this marketplace and how powerful it is. However, if you're ever doing anything in e-commerce, in fact, I would go so far as to say if you're building consumer products, there are a couple of lessons from working on eBay and looking at so much data that I want you to know. And there's basically only two things that are really important. We ran so many A/B tests. We tested literally everything that we would ever do, and this goes, both at Microsoft and at eBay, and it's crazy, right? You have data from millions and millions of people. You have a lot to work with, and you can tell if it's statistically significant. In a startup, you just don't know because you don't have enough data. So two things: if you're ever building an e-commerce site, make sure you have giant images. The bigger the image, the better it will sell. As soon as we made our images big, started selling like crazy. The other one, site speed. So make sure that whether it's your site or a mobile app, whatever consumer product you're building, make sure that it is extremely fast. A lot of the growth from Instagram actually is because they did an amazing job with performance. So Instagram is a very responsive app. When users are using it, they have a really perceived speed. It responds. There's a lot of hacks you can do, but a very important, any consumer product, make sure it responds well. It's going to, whether it's conversions or engagement or anything, make sure you have it performing and that it's speedy. So, eBay's been around for a long time, and there's really only very few companies that are kind of sort of successful at being serious competitors. And they're Etsy, which is a company in New York. It's a marketplace, and they've done an amazing job with user experience. And this is kind of where I start talking about, what is really the crux of innovation. User experience is just becoming so important. You can't get away with crappy looking website or mobile app. Poshmark, another one, up-and-coming startup in Silicon Valley. Threadflip is just doing incredible, and they're a marketplace for women's clothes. Poshmark also is women's clothes, but they have them for other categories as well. So why did I spend so much time talking about eBay? Well, first of all, I wanted you to know where I'm coming from, where my background is, and why I really care, like what got me here. The second big reason is that e-commerce is a bear. What does this mean? There's an essay by an incredibly smart founder whose name is Andy Dunn. He runs a company called Bonobos. And really, the crux of the essay, the reality is that even though e-commerce is, it's been around for a while, it's actually been, since 90s. However, it turns out that it's incredibly difficult to run an e-commerce business, and that the economics of building one are brutal. The US market is incredibly competitive. And to be more specific, I'm talking about building an e-commerce company where you're selling third-party stuff. Good luck with that. In the last, 15, 20 years, there's really been only 2 major e-commerce giants. And they are eBay. So these are the IPOs, the big IPOs, right? eBay, the other one that's just really the bear of e-commerce is Amazon.com. And it's pretty much impossible to compete with Amazon.com. There are companies that have come close, and they are actually, funny enough, it is a company called Diapers.com. It was doing incredibly well. There's another one called Zappos, doing incredibly well. People love it. Best user experience, best customer experience. Well, guess what? It turns out the business was actually incredibly brutal. Their margins were thin, and they were both acquired by Amazon.com. Recently, there's another company called Zulily that's another major IPO. But really, where are the big e-commerce IPOs? Why isn't it happening? It's because the business is brutal, it's tough, and the biggest competitor you have to deal with in the United States, and now worldwide, is Amazon.com. And they're brilliant. The founder is a genius. They're scaling, and they're just killing companies everywhere. So, a little more data. So, the other really startling fact is that while we have all of this e-commerce, we have all this innovation, it turns out that e-commerce today is only 9% of total retail. Imagine that. Out of everything we buy, out of all the shopping we do, online commerce only accounts for 9%. When I saw this, I was shocked. I thought it was much bigger. And again, it's because it's a very difficult business. However, that said, things are changing, and slowly, e-commerce is taking a bite out of traditional retail, out of the antiquated old ways that we shop. So here you can see how it's growing over time. We have good, strong projections going into 2015. It's still early, even though we've had the internet for quite a while. It's also interesting that the way that people shop is very different based on the kind of stuff they're buying. Actually, this is what you would expect. So think about books, digital goods. It makes sense that these are e-commerce stars, right? It's easy to get them online. So here you see the strongest line is media, sporting, and hobby goods. Then it's followed by electronics and appliances. You're buying an electronics, do you really need to look at it? Not really. You know what the features are, you know what you want. You can get it online, it's fine. Another one that's trending up here are the 2 blue lines representing furniture and clothing. So these are trickier because when you buy clothes, you typically want to, shoppers want to try them on, they want to feel the material. It's a very social experience for a lot of people. This one's it's tricky to get it online and to make it an e-commerce play. However, it is happening. I know quite a few people who are online shoppers only for clothing. Furniture as well is one of those things where it's nice if you can see it before you actually buy it. And then the hardest category to attack of all, of course, is food, right? I don't know anyone. I mean, I'll talk about innovations there and things that are happening. However, most people still buy groceries in stores. The other thing that you see is the death of malls in US. So malls are just huge shopping centers. Here you see how over time the vacancies are just going up like crazy. So things are changing. So I talked about eBay, which is the kind of my motivation for this talk. I want to talk a little bit about Amazon, which is a big company that's doing a tremendous amount of innovation, lots of really cool stuff. And personally, I'm very fascinated by Amazon. So Jeff Bezos, a lot of people say he looks a little bit like Dr. Evil, but brilliant guy, notorious for, like, I have friends who work in Amazon. Good luck going into a meeting with him. He knows everything. He'll tear you apart. People prepare for months ahead of time before they talk to him. The wealth of his knowledge is just incredible. So I know this is a little bit long, but I think it's very important to get in his brain and learn a little bit more about their strategy. It's very difficult if you're a startup to compete on this because you have limited time. So Jeff Bezos says, if everything you do needs to work on a 3-year time horizon, then you're competing against a lot of people, right? So this is for a lot of startups. But if you're willing to invest on a 7-year time horizon, you're now competing against a fraction of those people. Very few companies are willing to do that. A lot of people want a quick return. They just don't have the grit to last for 10 years or whatever. So he says, just by lengthening the time horizon, you can engage in endeavors that you could never otherwise pursue. At Amazon, we like things to work in 5 to 7 years, so this is very long-term thinking. We're willing to plant seeds, let them grow, and we're very stubborn. So, very tough to compete with that, but like kudos to him. When Amazon first came out, they endured tremendous ridicule from Wall Street, a lot of doubt. He proved it. He proved that he had a good business. Well, actually many businesses, which goes into this slide. So it's crazy how many different businesses Amazon has taken on, right? They have Kindle, they have instant video, they have MP3s, they have cloud, web services, app store. Now they're doing groceries, I'll talk about. That's kind of interesting. Cloud player, they started out with books, and then they scaled it into other categories. By the way, this is what's going to happen everywhere, but they did it at US first. In US, it used to be that we had these small, cute shops, small bookshops. Then there was the era of bigger ones and consolidation with like companies like Walden Books and B. Dalton. Nobody knows about these anymore. They're dead. They were bigger. Then it went to Barnes and Noble and Borders. So these are pretty significant book players in US. Killed by Amazon. Completely killed by Amazon. And why? Well, check this out for innovation. To me, this is just incredible. If you guys ever, after this talk, if you're interested more about this, go to YouTube and look for Amazon Warehouse. And they have this crazy video where they show you how everything is completely automated in their warehouses. The way that they move goods is like unlike anyone in the world. They acquired a company for $775 million. That's just robots. Every space has a barcode. Every product has a barcode. Everything is so efficient, so optimized, so data-driven. I mean, this is incredible. To do it on this scale, it's perfectly quick and efficient. So if you have a chance, go check out a video where you get to see an Amazon warehouse. You see all these robots going around. This is also another crazy thing is Amazon powers a lot of other companies, big companies like Netflix, on their own infrastructure. So on Amazon Web Services, raise your hand if you're a startup who's on Amazon Web Services. Anyone? All right, a lot of people. And it's becoming easier and easier to use Amazon Web Services. So I mentioned before that what's really startling to me is that only 9% of all retail is online. So there's an enormous opportunity to improve and innovate on shopping, on regular shopping, right? So they're doing same-day delivery. Really, like, one of the big strengths of Amazon is their logistics. They can do it at scale and like no one else can. So now they have same-day delivery, which is pretty crazy. They're building warehouses around all the major cities in US to make it easier. Their ultimate competitor is the brick and mortar stores. That's the huge opportunity. Like, my opinion, you know, long term, I'm very bullish on Amazon. There are other companies that are also playing around in the delivery space. This is kind of interesting. Google has Google Shopping Express. There's a startup in San Francisco called 6 Doors that will deliver anything from any local shop in a day. There's Postmates. They do food and some other stuff. eBay also attempted this, and they just recently shut it down. So that's why I have the dead on eBay. Amazon also has Amazon lockers, where the problem they solve with that is if you can't trust that your package, like, somebody won't steal your package. This one's interesting, grocery shopping. They have Amazon Fresh. There's also another startup called Instacart that's doing grocery delivery. A lot of people are playing in the delivery space. DoorDash was one startup that was mentioned earlier for food. There's a lot of delivery stuff kind of cropping up. There's another device that Amazon did. So this is a device called Amazon Dash. And you can scan a barcode of any item, any grocery item in your house, and it automatically goes into the list, and Amazon Fresh delivers it for you. That's it. You don't need to do anything. You just scan things with this device, and then groceries come to your house. You don't need to get out of the house anymore. So as I, the point I want you guys to kind of take away from this is e-commerce is really hard, and there are two major competitors. I mentioned eBay, which is a very different model from Amazon. And then there's Amazon, which is the bear. That's really, really difficult to compete with. So if you want to play in this space, and if you want to have a startup, how do you compete? What do you do? It's a very hard problem. You have to be very innovative. You have to do things very differently. And there are, it turns out, some very effective ways of going about that. So I'm going to talk about those next. So one model that's quite effective is flash sales. So this is all about proprietary pricing. So the way it works is you give your customers savings on designer brands that have surplus inventory. Companies that have done well in this space are Gilt Group, Rue La La, Ideally. One Kings Lane does furnishings. Fab used to do, when they were doing well, they used to do flash sales. Zalili I mentioned as well. It does children's clothing, and it just IPO'd, very successful. So this is one model that's, worked pretty well for a lot of people. This one, there's another model, direct sourcing. Very, very, very interesting to me. Why is it interesting? Because if you think about, shopping, you as a buyer simply go to a store, you buy something, right? But actually, in order for the goods to get there, there's so much that has to happen. So with this model, you collapse in an efficient supply chain. You design and source all your own stuff. You own everything in the chain. There's a company I mentioned before called Bonobos. So Bonobo, by the way, is a monkey, which is why there's a cute monkey in this slide. So Bonobos does men's pants. And they have another really interesting concept, which is called the guide shop. So they've actually opened stores However, the whole purpose of the store is for you to go in, try something, and then you actually buy everything online. They've done partnership with Nordstrom, and they have these customer service ninjas. They've done pretty well. Another one that's pretty interesting is crowdsourcing fashion. So if you decide what you think is interesting, you crowdsource it, support it, and then it gets made, and then you get it. So this is Guston. It's a startup in San Francisco. Warby Parker, eyeglasses. It turns out that in US, eyeglasses are insanely expensive. The markup is something like 10 to 20 times the actual cost of manufacture. There's no reason for this, so they've attacked this problem, and they've also started to open up regular shops as well. So that's the second way. Again, proprietary merchandising, proprietary pricing. These are some of the models if you want to play in e-commerce that have been proven to work against the giants. Another one, proprietary selection. So there's a company called Nasty Gal. So this is all about creating a very unique experience for a very unique buyer. So Nasty Gal is a company targeted to women who have a very specific style. It's very edgy, it's very modern, forward-thinking, but outside of the regular stuff that you can get everywhere. So it's actually a very interesting story. Nasty Gal started on eBay. So she was a 20-year-old girl who was just selling stuff on eBay. And she was so effective at it that over time she built up a huge following, huge fan base, and the thing just grew organically. It was bootstrapped for many, many, many years until finally it grew to a point where she had her pick of VC investors. There's another company, ModCloth, in San Francisco that did the same model. So here it's all about finding a very unique, passionate audience for your product, people who just are crazy about it, who really subscribe to it, and then making a business out of it. So if you can do something like that, you can easily differentiate against Amazon, which is everything and doesn't really have much of style. Another fourth model I want to talk about is alternative distribution. So this is all about the experience, right? So all of these companies, Trunk Club, Birchbox, Love with Food, operate on a model where you get a package and it's this like surprise component and you get to sample the stuff. So Trunk Club is men's clothing. So if you're a guy and you hate shopping, you can go to Trunk Club and they pick everything out for you and they just send it to you. You can return it if you don't like it, you keep what you like. You no longer have to wait around in a shopping mall while your girlfriend or wife is, running around trying to looking at stuff. Birchbox is a company that does women's makeup, so they send samples to women. Women love it, worked really well. Love with Food is you sample different kinds of really cool food, so it's for all the people who are foodies, who care about organic, quality food. Citrus Lane is baby stuff. Rent the Runway is a very interesting company as well, so this is where women who want beautiful designer dresses can rent them and then return them. Normally, women wouldn't even be able to buy them. They're so expensive. So now they could rent them. Okay. So then, House was mentioned in the previous presentation. I think it's another company I'm just completely fascinated by, and it works off this combination of content, community, and commerce. So it's all about designing your house, doing everything possible, whether it's buying, whether it's designing, whether it's remodeling for your house. And they have a very strong community and have had enormous growth. If you have a chance, check it out. It's anytime you need to do anything with your space. It's very inspirational. It's very aspirational. It really differentiates itself, and it's very specific to this vertical. So very unique experience. Polyvore is another company that's for women, women's clothes. Jack Threads is for men. So it's actually kind of funny. I think you might have seen a similar slide in a previous presentation, but mobile is, it's just tremendous. And when I was at eBay, mobile really, really took off. When I arrived at eBay, they had very scant to non-existent mobile offering. And then what happened was, they created a few things, they hired a team, it just took off like crazy. eBay's had a revival. It's partly due to mobile, actually. It's had a significant impact on the business. Specifically for eBay, mobile has brought new users, fresh blood, people who have not been on eBay for a long time. And so, eBay has just had a tremendous time with mobile commerce. And mobile commerce is still in very, very early days. There's incredible potential here. It's starting to happen, but it will, it's going to grow for sure. And one other thing I want to mention about mobile commerce, which is really interesting, is that if you're doing mobile commerce, you should probably focus on Apple, because that is where the very affluent, buyers are, and they spend a lot of money, and they're comfortable with buying on mobile. Android is having a very rough time. People don't usually buy stuff on Android much. Another area of innovation, and is also very fascinating, is just want to briefly mention this, is mobile payments, but I think it's huge and it's getting bigger. So PayPal has this really cool experience where you can just pay with the app. So all you do is you go to a store, you check in. So you choose a merchant, step one. Step two is you check in. And then the merchant can see your face on the screen, compare with actually who you are, and that's it. The payment is done. Nothing else. Square had a similar. It's a beautiful user experience, buyer experience. A little bit harder on the business. Square had the same thing and just killed it. So Square is another company that's in this space and has done enormous innovation. Now they're doing ordering ahead, so you can skip lines. But their primary business is the Square Reader. This is one of my favorite companies, mobile coupons, Shopular. It's called Shopular. So you have all these coupons. You go to shop, and it notifies you when you're around stores that you like that have coupons. So you can go and apply them. I want to mention this briefly, but I'm not going to talk too much about it. I think there are experts here who know much better than me. iBeacon, so for anyone, in case you don't know, it's Apple's portable, low-cost transmitter for iOS devices. All right, it's a lot of stuff, and I probably missed a whole bunch of stuff. It's an enormous area, but I think something I'm very passionate about. So I'm going to slowly wrap up. Where are we going? So there's definitely, in my opinion, but convergence of online and offline, and you see that with stores like companies like Bonobos that have both a strong online presence, and now they're going to stores and revolutionizing the way we buy there. Mobile is just huge. There's no question here. It's growing like crazy. People are going to start buying more and more on mobile. Mobile is also so interesting because it's really given the opportunity to combine online and offline, and it's the perfect medium for that. Another one is customize and personalize. You think about having the clothes that you want made for you, sent to you directly. You don't have to go to stores and just, muddle with things like sizes and so on. There's more and more of a push here, but this one is really, really difficult to attack. Customer experience, again, if you're running an e-commerce business, this is basics. You have to have an incredible customer experience in US, otherwise you will never go anywhere. So responsiveness to customers, making sure they're refunded when they need to, that shipping and returns are all appropriate. If you don't have this, you're never going to go anywhere. This is where Zappos really, really shined. They were number one. Like, the reason Amazon bought them was because 1 year they unseated Amazon in customer experience, and Amazon freaked out and said, "Oh, we're no longer number one in Amazon in a customer experience. We got to get these guys right." So, very fascinating. And then making the way that we shop seamless and effortless. It's so painful today. Why is that the case? We have the technology. It should be easier. Part of it is, the way it's just a lot of things are still antiquated. If you're a merchant, it's very difficult to move things around. It's very difficult to have it both to run your business as it is and to have an online business. So a lot of it's, as we get better infrastructure, as we become more data-driven, things are going to change. They have to. We're going to have a dramatically different shopping experience in the next 10 years. 20 years, it's going to look like something you never imagined. It's moving that way, but we're still in early stages, and I'm completely fascinated by what's coming next. Most importantly, this is a giant market opportunity. The market is just huge. There's so much to be done here. There's so much to innovate on. All right, so I'm going to wrap up.
Thank you.
See if there are any questions.
Yeah, first of all, please applaud her. Thank you. I'm going to allow just maybe 1 or 2 questions depending on their length. Has anyone a question? Please. Ooh, suddenly I'm all pink. Can you raise your hands? And I don't see anything anymore, so there's one here and one in the back. So that's 2 questions. One here. No, you can start with, since you're already here.
Hi. You have a very Polish-sounding name, Natalia. Is there a relation to Poland?
There's no relation.
There's no. Okay. A great presentation on e-commerce, but I have 2 things. So first of all, you haven't mentioned China. I was going there.
Great.
E-commerce.
Thank you.
So you mentioned 2 giants. I think there's more than 2.
That's true. I should have given you a heads up. I was only focusing on US.
But my real question is about the unseating of eBay or Amazon. Do you think that's a strategy for startups? So you've mentioned. No, so you wouldn't see
absolutely not.
Okay, so you think those 2 giants, let's say the American ones, will dominate every single category there is?
Amazon, I would be very careful. So
why did diapers and why did Zappos and those other companies happen?
So let me be more specific. So when I say I wouldn't compete with, specifically, I mean Amazon. eBay, I think there's room. And it's proven that there's room. I enumerated 3 companies that are very close. They're more deep and more vertical. That's one way to attack it, right? But it's still hard. I mean, eBay has a name and a brand, and it's difficult. Amazon. So where I think it's a mistake to compete with Amazon is if you're building an e-commerce site selling third-party products. There's no way that you can scale and kick them out, right? So what happened with Zappos, they made a good run. They were at it for a very long time. I mean, they're a company that went around, they lasted something like 10 years and had a couple of near-death experiences. Kudos to them. They're incredible entrepreneurs to be able to hang in there. And again, the reason that they became somewhat of a threat to, I wouldn't even say they're a threat to Amazon, but the customer experience was so amazing, so unique, so well done that it really, if you look at the economics of the acquisition, they had no choice. It's not a sustainable business. There's no way they could have IPO'd. They had to sell to Amazon.
So why?
No, sorry, but I have to move on to the next question. Yeah. I'm really sorry, but I have the master of time or something. But something, while you go to the other question, something about China. I'm working on a project, and we're using WeChat, Weixin, which is a messaging app I cannot talk about that specific project, but if you look at some stuff, Xiaomi, which is a mobile manufacturer, has been selling through, so they will say, it's like WhatsApp basically, and they have an official account and they say, oh, we're gonna do a flash sale of suddenly like, they don't always tell the numbers, but 10,000 phones, and like in less than 10 minutes, all the 10,000 phones, of course, China as size. So it's actually very interesting. You have other options, and I think one thing you mentioned Birchbox. That's one of the ways to actually attack with a different angle. Instead of actually being a pure marketplace, you offer a different experience. You get a shopping gift every month.
And incidentally, Amazon has My Habit, which is
similar. Exactly.
I mean, as soon as they see it works, they're going to go after it.
Yeah. But I agree with you in other markets, but that was not what she was going for. But Japan is also a very interesting differentiations for that. But we can talk. You can talk as well with Natalia because you'll be hanging out, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So
they're just not markets I'm familiar with, so I don't feel qualified to discuss them.
Yeah, but China is indeed fascinating. Do you have the microphone? Yeah, go ahead, please.
Yes. Hi, I'm Richard. And so, firstly, Alibaba's revenues are bigger than Amazon plus eBay combined, so it's 257 billion. But I also would question whether you can ever give up on a market because, sure, Amazon and eBay are ahead now, but here in Krakow we've got Integer, which is doing like Amazon Locker. They got 120 million euros of investment, and people like Amazon can also be clients. I sell automated warehouses here in Poland, and it's like every big company is also an opportunity. In Tel Aviv, there's a company called Feed Advisor, whose market is Amazon merchants. So I really would encourage everyone here, just because Amazon does it, don't give up. I've got Naspers as a client.
Well, and again,
Naspers has got Tencent.
And again, I came from a U.S. perspective.
Yeah, but even in the U.S., like there's companies in Israel with 25 employees for whom Amazon is an opportunity because they sell to Amazon merchants. So I would say, yeah, sure, the big guys, and I'm a client of Amazon, I'm a huge respecter of Amazon, but like the big guys can slip up too. So I'd say, yeah, it's not wise to compete with them head to head, but look at what they're doing wrong and go for that. Yeah.
So I guess if you have 7 years, if you can afford it.
Yeah, I'm a bit older than you, so I'm running out of time.
But what is certain is that e-commerce is anyway so big, and that's what she mentioned, that there are other opportunities. That sometimes it's because of market behaviors, and sometimes it's because new angles and new customer experiences you can actually create.